any normal human being in that situation would have said, it's my fault, it's my responsibility that they're dead. I stole millions of dollars from people. I lied to everyone, and my family paid the price for my misdeeds.
The court knows and understands that I fully intended for you to spend every day of the remainder of your life in prison.
I was on drugs, and that's why I don't know anything, because he wasn't on that amount of drugs that he doesn't know anything.
He really knows the system and how to work it.
He did so in such a way that none of his law partners knew that he did it, that the clients didn't even know he did it.
If he was sleeping in the house, how did he not hear these gunshots going off?
Hey everybody, thanks for watching the Carolina Justice Report. I'm Rainey Romero with the Lovely Law Firm. Today we are chatting about the Murdaughs. We have another update for you. The trial is over, but the story is far from over. Stick with us. All right, folks, thanks so much for watching today. I'm Rainey Romero. I'm here with all the attorneys that you know and love. We've got Amy Lawrence, Sharday Crawford, and Sarah Austin over here. How we doing, ladies?
Pretty good.
Pretty good. Yeah. So I know, if you've been following our social media channels, we have been all about the Murdaugh trial and stories from the beginning. We've been doing Carolina Justice Reports well over a year ago, and then we've been doing podcast live streams of the trial, so we are all up in that with you. I know we'll talk a little bit about the end of the trial, because I know we talked about it on our podcast, but we haven't done it on the show yet. But are there any updates that have been happening within the past, couple weeks?
Since the verdict, or?
Since the verdict, yeah.
Well, I'm sure everybody knows, but he was found guilty on all counts and was sentenced to 2 life sentences by Judge Newman the day after. And we do know that the defense has filed a notice of appeal.
And what does that mean, if someone doesn't know what that means?
So in South Carolina, you have 10 days from time of conviction to file a notice that you will appeal.
Okay.
And it says, hey, we're going to appeal.
And what is
Very
an appeal?
fancy.
What does that mean?
It says that there's something in the record that is reversible error, and we want someone to take a look at it and see if
they can do like a retrial. Would that be a retrial if that was granted?
Yep.
I don't
If it was granted later, but yeah.
Is that going to be a hard fight to fight for an appeal?
We think so, 100%.
Yeah.
The issues in that case is, and we were all like, all the lawyers watching it were, no one objected. And in order to appeal something, you have to preserve it for the record. So you have to object to it. The judge has to rule against it or not. And then that would be the appealable issue. There wasn't a lot of objections in that trial. Mm-hmm. It was insane. Like as a defense attorney, I was like,
I think we talked about this in a prior podcast.
Yeah, that there wasn't many.
They weren't objecting, and so I think there were a lot of appealable issues, but I don't know that they were preserved. So I think, I'm not sure which ones they can bring up to talk about. I wasn't keeping track, but it'll be definitely interesting to read it. The notice of appeal is just notice that you intend to file an appeal. The appeal will be written, it'll be detailed, it'll come out, and
so we don't know what the appeal is going to say.
It'll talk about each issue that they think is appealable and reversible, and so then we'll get to know sort of.
And what's kind of the timeline for that? When do we expect to get the actual appeal?
I mean, it's going to take months just to get the transcript. So you have to have a complete record.
So you have to go through the
they'll
whole
have to have all that so they can comb through it and stuff. I mean, I don't foresee it happening for months.
Yeah.
And months.
And for the court to make a decision, that's years.
Oh,
appeals take years. So it's not going to.
So Alec is in there for a while before anything happens anyway.
I mean, I don't know. He always gets preferred treatment, so maybe they'll hear his earlier.
Or not hear theirs earlier.
Yeah, it'll probably be earlier than everybody else, but yeah, he's going to be in there for a while.
Huh. Well, that's interesting. I wasn't sure of the appeal process myself. So let's go back to the actual trial. We followed this heavily. We were live streaming it all day long, every day for over a month. Yes. So, it seems like now there's kind of like highlights from the trial that people are kind of talking about the most. I know the judge being one of those and kind of what he said to Alec at the end there. But what were things that stuck out to each of you with the trial?
What were your favorite parts?
I mean, my favorite part was sentencing.
Okay.
We talked about that on the podcast
yeah.
previously, but I liked hearing Judge Newman's perspective of here's this individual who has been sitting in an unbiased manner, not sharing his opinion with the court, and how here's the person who sat in, and he talked about how he sat in when all of the search warrants needed to be signed. The officers had to come to him. He sat in on the grand jury decisioning making, and then throughout the entire trial and all the pretrial motions. And as he then went through his feelings of that, to say, you know, here you are, this lawyer who's come in and practiced in front of me. I've seen you outside at parties, and, you know, you are a gregarious individual. But here you are, this upstanding person in the legal community with a long-lasting history. And he even mentioned how he had to take his grandfather's picture down from the courthouse so that no one would be biased by that. But he's saying, knowing all of that, you still presented to the court an alibi defense and had the state go through and prove you wrong on your alibi defense when you were saying that you weren't guilty and weren't even there. And it's not until they proved you wrong that you finally, you know, accepted and then told the court, okay, you were there, but then you didn't commit the murders. And so, you know, to hear Judge Newman then finally be able to share his opinion and very clearly tell him, you know, I don't know how you're going to be able to sleep at night, and that, you know, your wife and your son are going to come and visit you, and this is something that you've got to deal with in your soul. I really liked that because, I mean, of anybody, he's got this very full understanding of this case, and to then be able to share that as he pronounces sentence, and so that you can understand why his sentence was consecutive, right? I stood up in court one day and I asked the judge to give my client consecutive instead of concurrent, and that was and I was like, "Ooh, my bad."
JK, just kidding.
Strike that. Strike it
from the record. So that was what I really liked.
Yeah. Well, and I think you're right. I think almost I am hearing about what Judge Newman said to him almost as much as I am the trial, just because there were some really powerful statements that he made to Alec that I think touched a lot of people.
Yeah.
And we also didn't get to really hear from Judge Newman. I mean, the whole time he's kind of been like the referee and, you know, not able to voice his own opinion. And I think that was a real eye-opening experience that we were able to see that we don't, that's unusual, right? That the judge would kind of give all that at the end, or is it?
I guess it all depends on which judge it is. You know, I've had judges where I've seen them, you know, render life sentences and, you know, go ahead and tell the court, it is my intention that the court knows and understands that I'm fully intended for you to spend every day of the remainder of your life in prison, and that should anything ever happen where we start releasing people from prison, that you are not one of them. It is my intention that they understand that, and this is why I'm giving you consecutive life sentences. And so, no, there are definitely judges who will lay it on and really tell you what was so impactful to them about that trial. But then there are others who just render the verdict and render the sentence and just move on.
I've seen it the opposite way too, though, where the judge is never going to come out and disagree with the jury's finding, but I've seen them be more lenient and explain the reasons for the leniency too. When
I found these mitigation circumstances,
and, you know, and the judge thought it was going to go a different way, that it was going to be a not guilty, and it ended up being a guilty. So judges I always like when a judge speaks, regardless of how it comes out, because the judges sometimes, like in Judge Newman's case, on the case from the beginning, and they get to see all the evidence that sometimes the jury doesn't see.
We don't see.
And they're at all those hearings about what comes in, what doesn't, and so Judge Newman really has the best understanding of this case
What I feel like
than anybody.
He's gained. I mean, I haven't heard a single negative thing about Judge Newman, which is shocking with all the, you know, personalities and debates that have been going on with this trial and media coverage. It's like he has really gained everybody's respect through the trial with how he's handled it.
And, you know, I think it should probably just speak volumes about why he was appointed to that. Because this wasn't some random selection to place him on there. He was chosen by the Supreme Court, the South Carolina Supreme Court, to sit on this case.
Right.
And I think that what everybody has witnessed, the whole nation has witnessed why. Why? Here is this man who sat on the bench for 22, 23 years. He's actually like 1 year away from retirement. In South Carolina, all judges are required to retire at the age of 72. And I think he's 71. And so you see this man who sat on the bench for all these years and why he was chosen. It is that demeanor. It is that careful analysis of the facts and the law, and the ability to hold your cool in such a contentious type
and
of
keep
case,
cool in the courtroom too.
Yeah.
I mean, he was in control of that courtroom.
Oh, yeah.
And it was a crazy courtroom.
Well,
with
it
all
made
that
you
stuff
feel at
going on.
ease, but based on how he was. you know?
Temperament is so important, right? Temperament is we say this all the time. You know, temperament of those who sit on the bench is so important. And I think that what this nation has seen is one of our best, right?
Oh, yeah. And this, I mean, this trial is going to be like a legacy for him just because it was so public, you know, such a public, I mean, for the whole world that was watching this. We had people, you know, from all over the world watching that live stream. I mean, they would pop in the morning and say, hello from whatever, Canada or wherever they were. So it was very interesting that it gained so much.
Because we don't always get a judge like Judge Newman. We've had him on all into the spectrum.
And I think it's great that in this case, sort of the integrity of the judiciary has been challenged with all the stuff that Alex Murdaugh got away with on the civil side and stuff. And so I think our judiciary has taken a hit in ways that I don't always agree with, because it doesn't happen the way it happened with Alec for everybody else. You know, our judiciary is doing a good job. And so for the nation to see that in Judge Newman during this trial, I think really they can't be talking smack about Judge Newman. And hopefully they'll think twice before they, you know, kind of roast all of our judges.
Right. And lump them all into this
because of the actions of this horrible person,
and
you know, this horrible lawyer.
And that's one of the things that he was trying to say even in sentencing is like that South Carolina and our whole judicial system has just been on trial itself. And, you know, and then said, you know, even during this process, SLED has been on trial, the cops, like everything. And that was probably also one of the reasons why he's gone to trial before other individuals who are still waiting for their trials.
We've been saying forever.
Right. You know, people sit and wait for years for a murder case to come up on trial, especially after COVID, when things were, you know, you had to put those aside and there were scheduling issues at that point. And so, you know, it's very clear that he understood that and brought that up even at sentencing.
Well, I, for one, I feel like I would have been like yearning for his opinion if he didn't give it. So I was really happy that he was like, I totally agree with this jury. Like the evidence was overwhelming. I was really surprised to hear that, because I think a lot of people watching, especially if you don't watch trials all the time, you don't know all the little things going on. And I wasn't sure how it was going to go. I know we did a poll and they weren't sure how the jury was going to go.
Rainy, so many people who are just like, I don't know, I felt like, you guys can tell me, but that whenever, because anytime, okay, like I was a hairdresser and I was getting my hair done and I turned around and I was like, hey girl, what you think about this case? Okay. And like, you know, because I want to know what a lay person thinks about this. You know, I reached and asked my mom, like, hey mom, what do you think about this? And it was so crazy that it was very polarizing.
Very polarizing.
You like thought he was guilty or you just thought he was not. And I just liked hearing the different perspectives on why people thought one way or the other, but they didn't know. It was
I heard a lot of like, we know he's guilty of the financial stuff, but there's not overwhelming evidence that he killed them. You know, I heard that a lot too, or I saw that in our comments a lot.
I think it's because no one wants to believe that somebody would kill their family like that. You know, even though we know it happens, we just don't want to believe it. It's really hard to kind of stomach and process.
Yeah, there's still questions about it, you know, even with after the guilty.
I'm in a Facebook Murdaugh murder group, and I just watch, and they're still debating this. I mean, they're still like going back and rehashing things, and it's been very polarizing. But I think that's why the apprehension is like, we just don't want to believe that somebody would kill their wife and their son. It's just like this innate thing. We just don't want to believe it. But the reality is that he did.
I don't have that as much as like, I don't want to believe it. I think like the reason it's guilty, so it's kind of like half satisfying. So I'm like, I know he did it, or he knows why, or he was there, right? but did he do it alone, and why? We still don't have this why. For me, it's always coming back to, where did all this money go?
Well, that's the
Where did all the money go, and why were they killed? And we watched this whole trial, and he's guilty, but we still don't, we don't have the why, and I don't know that we're ever going to get it.
And there's still weird details about, like, the changing of the guns and all these things where I'm just kind of like, what? I don't understand this. Like, how did this happen? But, I think we can all agree he knows.
But I think the people that were,
ever know
but
why.
I think the people who felt like he was guilty have that part of them.
Yeah.
But I think the people who were always saying not guilty, that the pull, because everybody is like, when they were saying, they would always qualify their answer with not guilty with, you just don't kill your kid, just like I did, like how I felt about it in the beginning. You just don't kill your kid. You know what I mean?
But I think that with the society the way that it is today, and how you watch movies and you watch TV shows and you watch things like CSI and Law and Order, and they always wrap it up in this nice pretty bow for you, right? And you have this witness who saw him pull the trigger, and you have this gun that has the DNA on it, and you have the shirts and the clothes with the milk on it. I mean, opposite with the milk, with the blood on it. And you have this motive, right? You have this person who breaks down to police and tells them exactly why they did it, and here we don't have any of that. And your brain just has such a hard time. You can't wrap it around it, right?
Yep.
Because you want all of that.
Because this thing has been like a movie. We still want it wrapped up like a
want
movie.
a key piece of evidence.
I don't think I'm ever going to get that, But you don't get that in a lot of cases, which...
And you certainly don't get that when the defendant is accused of murdering his wife and son, and the defendant is an attorney who knows better. I'm just saying, the same way the judge said, I had no expectation that you were going to stand up here at sentencing and all of a sudden tell us exactly what you were thinking when you pulled the trigger. Because you got an appeal coming, so
and you know what's coming.
So, like,
you know how to work it.
Yeah, you know the system.
You don't work the whole system that whole time, then get up there and say why you did it.
I've noticed that all these people are posting a lot of the jailhouse calls, and I think what people have realized is that he really knows the system and how to work it better than anybody.
Well, I felt that way even when I was watching the Netflix show that was out. That was kind of an eye-opening thing to me. Because we all knew that he worked the system, but to actually see kind of surveillance and kind of hear all the people that were around with the boat crash, how he immediately went into action and kind of worked that system. You're like, oh. And even when he was on the stand and he was evading everything, you're like, oh, you're just like, okay, I can see how you.
We always make the joke he was the best lawyer in the room.
Yeah,
the way he would answer those questions. Oh, Mr. Waters, I understand you were wanting to ask me all these questions, and I want to answer you, and I believe. And you're like,
he asked her the question.
The biggest bunch of shit you've ever heard. And you're but it was like gold. It was just
he's like, I think some of what you said is the truth, but is
entertainment value
not the truth. And I was like, if my clients would just say that,
right,
you would be in a better spot. But explaining to them that you can't answer partial questions, that was a lawyer answering those questions on the stands and watching out for the tricks that lawyers use against other people.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
No, it was interesting for sure. Very, very interesting.
It was crazy.
It's when I think about the things that he was saying on the stand. And I'd always said, if he is the narcissistic piece of that everybody says he is, then we're going to get a show, right? Jazz hands and all.
Yeah.
And then he put it on.
You're right.
It did not work to his advantage, but the entertainment value was pristine. I mean, my dad and mom were my mom had went to the doctor sick, and my dad would not even answer the phone. When my mom was calling to say what was wrong or whatever, he's like, I can't. Just hung up. Hung up on her, and she's like, your daddy hung up on me because Alex Murdaugh was testifying. He's like, this was the most entertaining thing I've seen in forever.
Well, and you're right. We did talk about that on the last Carolina Justice Report when we were talking about the Murdaugh, because we were trying to figure out would he take the stand, would he not take the stand, because that was kind of on the table last time. We weren't sure if he was going to do it, and you did. You were like, yeah, he's going to put on a show.
We're going to see Jeff
if he gets up there, and he did. Man, I was watching that and I was just like, oh my god, because he answered the same. It was the same statement for every time that the prosecutor tried to.
And I found it very
I
interesting.
stole money. I lied, but Mr. Waters, I can't tell you what I said 12 years ago in a conference room. That makes sense to me. You're right. Yeah, you are a liar and a cheater and a stealer.
Except for he knew all the details of everything except
everything except
I
that.
said
Yes.
what I ate that day, every detail of my day. But
I
honey,
can tell you where I was.
that 2-hour time period, it was just
Chaos. Can't even remember.
I just did all my drugs right before then. I took them all. I was sweating.
all those drugs.
I took all my drugs right before the murders. It was
How many
nuts.
pills did you? I don't know. I just
I'm
took all
still
these
mad that we don't know where the
pills.
money went. Like
Yeah.
Now, well,
hey,
that's
forensic
another
accountant,
question.
where did it go? Like, and why did no one ask?
Well, yeah. Is there going to be any kind of revisit of the money situation?
Well,
I don't think so. I don't think anybody wants us to know where it went.
Yeah.
So that's not something that
Because
could be
when people
retried as a
don't,
separate
when you,
case.
let me tell you something. I've never met a prosecutor.
But the trial's not about where the money went.
No.
The trial is about that he took it.
it wasn't.
right.
Okay.
It should have been.
Right.
If we bother to talk about how it was taken, we want to know where it went, right?
But she's saying, are they going to try
Is there gonna be a
cases
separate-
about
yeah.
where the money went?
Oh,
and I'm
no.
like, no. The trials
He's
are
already
about
said
Just the financial
the
crimes in
stealing.
general. Will there be another trial
but
for that?
I don't think we're going to ever find out where that
I
money
don't think
went.
we're going to get a trial on that either because he got up there and admitted to taking it all.
Yeah.
So he's
That's
going to
true.
plead guilty and we're not going to hear anything else about the details.
And then,
That's my opinion.
And then there's going to be no conversation about where this, how many millions of dollars?
A gazillion.
All right.
We don't even know.
We don't
They
even
didn't
know.
even track it.
Well, I've never,
We're not sure.
especially
They're
with
still
an
coming
attorney
forward.
general. I've never seen a prosecutor. They had him on the stand. He could not plead the fifth, right, to any
anything.
question. And they didn't ask him, who were you buying these drugs from? Who was it? You
How
know?
many?
How many?
When? How many were? I mean,
Right.
there's so many questions.
Wow.
And
I
so
didn't think about that.
I
That
think
they
the
could have
bigger
asked
question
him.
is why were they not asking those questions?
I don't
Because
think-
that was intentional.
I don't think he would have answered them though. He would have said he didn't know. I mean, his family just got killed. He's never going to tell us.
He's never going to
But
tell us. But I
somebody
mean, have you
can
ever seen,
track the
but for a
money.
prosecutor not to ask that is
Yeah.
insane to me.
I don't think he. Yeah, I don't
You're
think
telling me
even
that you have an opportunity to take down the biggest drug dealer in South Carolina's history, because if he's buying 50,000 a week, these people are like, obviously, you know, the kingpins of all kingpins and whatever. And you didn't ask the question when you had an opportunity of him to ask where you got the.
No, I'm also
Drugs?
disappointed in
No, I know.
not asking at all because there was a whole line of questioning that just
Went out the
for
window.
me debunked the whole I was on drugs and that's why I don't know anything because he wasn't on that amount of drugs that he doesn't know anything. But I don't think that he was ever going to say
Bobby Sue.
I was getting all these drugs from here and they
El
were
Chapo.
mad and so they came and
Right,
killed my
yeah.
family. Like I don't think he's ever going to.
Oh, I
he's
don't
just
think
going to
that.
say I don't know. But it
also
would have
just-
been a good. He would have looked, I don't know, more guilty. He's already found guilty, so it doesn't matter. But ask those questions.
I also just have a hard time wrapping my mind around the concept that here's this person who created a system for stealing millions of dollars over a time period. He did so in such a way that none of his law partners knew that he did it. That the clients didn't even know he did it. And that you guys are telling me that there's just absolutely no knowledge about it. However, he managed to do so while being on 60 pills a day for years. Those things
They
don't
don't.
go together.
No,
We know drug addicts. We have had clients who are drug addicts.
That's why that line
Everybody
of
knows a drug
questioning is
addict.
so important to be
prescription
like,
drug addict.
this whole story about the opioids is just
Bullshit.
stop.
Right.
Stop with it. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, it might have been about drugs, but it
And
wasn't
you're
because
not-
you were doing that.
And you're not stealing this money to support a drug habit. I'm sorry. I'm like, why is the stealing of the money not to support the property that you purchased
Or all
in
the
2013 right after you had just stolen it from the client settlement? You buy this home that is now currently on the market for $4 million. It would stand to reason that the stealing of the funds is to support a lifestyle.
Yeah.
And why are we just not talking about that? I don't understand.
Because
There were a lot of fancy people on those private planes.
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Okay.
Sorry.
I like the voice you get whenever you start talking about that stuff.
talk about how stupid
stuff that's stupid, you're like,
It makes sense.
because that's
so stupid.
It just
My
sounds
trial
so
tactics,
stupid.
guys. My trial tactics.
The drugs thing. So the line of questioning could have opened up how stupid that was. They could have done a better job.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I don't think it mattered, and I don't think he was gonna
Ever tell us
give us the answer. The answer is in the financial investigation, because that amount of money is traceable. You know, you're not washing
absolutely.
millions of dollars without it being traced somewhere. So where is it going? And I think, to Amy's point, they don't want us to know.
Yeah.
Because there's probably a lot of important people benefiting from that lifestyle.
Well, and let's talk about some of the key witnesses that really kind of made an impact or a turning point in the trial. Who would you say that is, Amy?
I mean, I think we all loved, is it Dr. Kinsey? The gun expert. I think that everybody really loved him. I really liked him. I remember texting everybody in our group chat, and I was like, I like him. Like, what a great witness. Like, he was humble and respectful, and Mr. Harpoolian, you know, I want to answer that question for you, but there's no way to do that. You know what I mean? And this is why, you know, and Dick Harpoolian had admitted that he had used him on a case before. In another case that he'd had. And so I just thought he was really impactful. I think people really liked him. He was personable. He made it easy to understand. You know, in contrast to you know, their DNA expert who went around their whatever to their elbow to try to say that nobody's DNA was there.
That's always disappointing.
Making it all complicated when it didn't have to be, but I think that was intentional. And I think I really think that, you know, Miss Shelley, I told you, I loved her from the very beginning. I felt very strongly about her just when she got on the stand. I knew I was going to love her and it was going to change me. And it did, my opinion on everything. And then I think that Mark Ball was a very powerful witness, because and Marion, the sister, because these are the people that were coming to the realization in real time that they think Alex committed these murders, and they had not gotten there yet.
Yeah.
And I think that was really, and
I think the cell phone
GPS
data and the GPS data were like
Home runs.
Now evidence. I mean, for me, when we heard that, I was like,
the cell phone guy, like he just like, in the GM data guy,
the GM data guy.
they just,
But explaining where he was and the times and you know, the miles per hour his car was going and how it slowed down where Maggie's phone was thrown. I mean,
Which is amazing that you can have all that data. I didn't even realize you could pull that data.
Yeah.
So that's
they don't ever
amazing.
give it.
Yeah.
You know, and I think they do that because they don't, I mean, I think people would feel like an invasion of privacy.
Right.
In this moment, it feels really good, but we don't want anybody doing that to us, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
it's like, have they been listening to my phone calls with my mom every single day? Because it's through my Apple
Those would
CarPlay.
be
Like,
interesting
probably
calls,
they've
Sarah.
been watching. You know, you get in your car now. Ever since this trial, I get in my car and it's like, my watch is like, ding, 13 minutes to the office.
Yes.
And then on a Saturday, it was like, ding, 6 minutes to my mom's house, because they know I go to my mom's house on Saturdays.
Wow.
I'm like, this is creepy.
weird,
Now I'm
yeah.
like, wait a second. Ever since this trial, I'm like, why do you know where I'm going?
Yes.
Just because I got in my
It
car.
tells me when I leave my car behind, when I go walk on the beach and what I
Yes.
do. Yeah.
So,
Crazy. Technology.
And it knows
It's that
the
double-edged
different days.
sword, right?
and it knows that I'm
'Cause
in
on
my car.
Sundays when I would get in the car, it'd be like, 20 minutes to Barnes and Noble. 'Cause
Exactly.
That's where I go on Sundays.
On
you know,
Yeah. Happy place.
It's like Monday through Friday.
That's my happy place.
I'm going to work. Saturday, I'm going to my mom's
Yes.
house. It's like they know everything about me. And they know when I get in my car, which is also weird. So
Alexa has known for a
this
long
trial has me thinking, like, I don't know.
I thought another thing that was interesting that a lot of people are talking about is Alex's reaction to a lot of things. How he was supposedly crying / not crying throughout the trial, and then stone cold for the sentencing. A lot of people are like, "Oh, where them tears go, Alex?"
All dry.
That's how I
What do
feel.
you think about the way he acted through this trial and through sentencing?
It's
Because
bullshit.
the trial was fake, I feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But sentencing, I don't ever fault anyone for not crying, and I think because I'm not a crier, and we had a trial that
neither.
got all the way to the not guilty, and I was the only one not crying. But I think that
was a
moment,
puddle on
and
the
in
floor.
other trials, when
not a crier
even when you're standing at that table, not even as the defendant, the emotions, when they become so overwhelming for me, I don't have a reaction, and so I don't blame. Like, I never blame or look at any defendant for their response to that moment, because it's not the emotions in that moment are not going to tell you whether they're guilty or not guilty, or they're sad or they're not sad.
Yeah.
Because that is just like the most overwhelming moment, even as a lawyer,
You're also in shock.
sitting next to them.
Yeah.
It's like shock.
So I can't imagine
I
being
did,
that
though.
person.
I did think that there would have been a reaction based on his way that he responded on the stand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I do agree with Sarah.
Yeah.
But I also, like, I just tell people it's like the trauma that's happened from practicing law and like having to shut down your emotions. It just is harder for me to, it's just really hard for me to cry.
I can understand that.
Even in moments when I do. But when I do, it is so uncontrollable that I can't stop it. It's like
It's a
the
build-up.
floodgates.
Maybe that's why, because
Open.
we're trained like don't cry in court.
Yeah.
So like we will not, doesn't matter what is happening in court.
Amy's
I'm not
like,
gonna
"Oh,
cry in court.
do they say that stuff?
She breaks the rule all the time.
Someone
cry.
at
I've never seen her not
at
break
my
that rule.
old job, someone snuck a pin,
Yeah.
pins, that said "There's no crying in court." I was like, I mean, I ain't never cried in here, but dang, like I don't even know who ever put it on my
cry if I
desk.
want to.
She breaks that
did
rule.
a plea. I cried.
Every time we're in court.
I'm a crier, okay? I had big feelings about everything, okay, guys? And I used to I used to fight it, and then I just realized that's like my superpower, and I just lean into it now. I mean, I'm not a puddle on the floor. I mean, I have been a puddle on the floor. I have literally been laying on the floor waiting on a jury to come back sobbing. But, for me, I had a case where I was filling in and ended up going to a plea. And I didn't even know these people. I was sobbing like a baby, watching a bunch of grown men cry. I was crying. It was a mess. I was a mess. I'm crying about everything.
Yeah. Well, you feel deeply, and that was something that maybe you wanted to hide before, but now you're like, there's nothing wrong with feeling deeply.
I have extreme empathy, and watching, it's like when I did that plea where I was just subbing in, and then, everything kind of went to crazy, and it went to a plea, and these grown men are having to, and they're just crying, but I'm also looking at the victim's family. It's just, because my heart hurts for everybody, because in this instance, like, everybody's life is forever changed.
Yeah. I feel like that
for
would get to
one
me,
bad
too. Yeah.
choice. That family doesn't have a kid anymore. Their little girl is gone.
Yeah.
This man's whole life is gone. Like, everybody's whole, and then his mom sitting there, and it's like the combination of all of it.
Yeah, that's a lot. Yeah.
It's a lot.
You, my son reminds me of you. That's how he is.
He's a little love muffin.
He is so empathetic
Yeah.
that he just feels everything. And so when he was in the hospital, he's like crying, and he would not tell the nurse why. And I'm like, baby, why is it? And he's like, there's a baby crying down the hall.
Sweet boy.
And I said, hey guys, can we close the door?
Gonna put on some white noise.
He just
The thought of a baby being in the hospital with him.
Hurting.
Yes, he was like, I'm not
What is a
concerned
baby
about
doing
me. There's
here?
a baby down there crying. You guys haven't gone down there.
What is he doing here? No place
You know
for
what
babies.
though? Not to get off topic, but I understand that. I relate to that because every time I have to take my kids to the doctor or go get shots or something,
Oh, yeah.
I'm like,
and they cry
this
away.
place is a torture chamber. It's like babies crying everywhere, and I'm like, oh. So I can relate.
I
to
get
that
crying
too.
babies on planes. I'm like, give me the baby.
Oh my gosh, I can't.
I do.
What are you doing to that baby? So I appreciate that. But I try and stay. I'm a very empathetic person, but I'm also someone in control of my emotions too. So I'm like both. I'm both on different occasions, but I have to shield myself from knowing about a lot of things in the world because I don't watch the news. I try not to learn too much about these Carolina Justice Awards, but just because I take it home, and I can't sleep, and I'm like, I have to be. If you're a very empathetic person, you have to be careful with what you let in your psyche, you know.
do.
So, but I love that you do what you do, Amy, and you are like that because it does. It's a different kind of mold, and I think when I was watching this trial, I was so annoyed with the attorneys a lot of times because I remember I asked you guys last time, should they be likable? Should they not be likable? You said, yeah, they should be likable, and I feel like sometimes. I was not a jury member, but I feel like sometimes when you watch stuff like that, you almost make your opinion based on the character of
You feel like they're credible.
the attorney. Yeah, you're like, are you trying to cheat me? Are you like being a car salesman right now, or are you? Do you feel bad about this? And are you a good person at heart? Can I respect you? And I feel like the attorney really sets the tone for a lot of how you feel in the moment of the trial and everything too.
I think it 100% matters.
Yeah.
It's like the first thing they teach you when you go to trial school.
And I think that I try to always tell people when it comes to trial and juries is why do we expect anything different of the jury than what we do in a regular day? And the reality of that is we make split decisions about people that we interact with and we meet on a daily basis. You look at them, you talk to them, and you make judgments, whether you mean to or you don't.
Yeah,
right?
subconsciously.
About whether someone's genuine and isn't genuine, and so it's the same at trial. It's the same. A juror is going to look at the attorney and make a decision about whether this attorney is being straight with them versus where they're not, whether they can believe them, whether the client is believable, whether he looks remorseful or doesn't, whether he is sitting over there being innocent. And the same way as when we're presenting evidence to them, they should be natural reactions. Like when we're trying to get them to understand things, think of it as if you were a person trying to understand it. So it's nothing wrong with that. It's exactly
Perception is everything, and people are watching you when you don't even know from the moment you walk in the door. So how you hold yourself, how you react with your client, how you interact with your client, how you interact with other attorneys, those things matter. Because that lends to credibility. If I'm rude and disrespectful to the attorney on the other side, then I lose credibility with that jury. And nothing is worth losing that. And authenticity matters, because I always say, a jury can, and I think the Murdaugh case is the best example of that a jury can sense bullshit from a mile away, like what is authentic and what is not and genuine. And when I saw that, the jury members that spoke on Good Morning America, and I think one of them, the little young guy, I just loved him. But when they talked about how he was not crying, how it was contrived, there was not a tear. It was a lot of snot maybe, but not a tear. They know. You know what I mean? They knew it. And that's what we want from juries.
And that's why I think when the jury came back so fast, I was surprised at how fast it came back. But then you kind of be like, that it's going to be guilty when that happens. But there's a lot of stuff, we were split on the polls online and we're talking about all these things, but when you're in that room and you feel the energy of the lawyers and they felt the energy of Alec while he was up there, then they can tell. You can tell from being in the room with someone more than you can tell on a screen, which is why sometimes I hate these virtual hearings and things like that.
Well, we talked about...
So I trust that, and you felt Judge Newman and how he felt about it too, being in the room that whole time. And so I think where I was not satisfied with the evidence, and I think the cops, everybody could have done a better job. I've always said that. This investigation was derailed from the housekeeper cleaned 8 hours after. But it gave me even more confidence in his guilt, the way that the jury came back so fast and the way that Judge Newman felt. I was like, whatever the energy in that room was, he's lying.
Well, I was going to say the exact same thing. Like the pretty bow that we kind of wanted to be wrapped up, I almost got from Judge Newman talking and the jury and how they felt. Just because I was like, and especially because, the judge I respected so much by the end of it, that when he was like, this evidence was overwhelming and I totally agree, then I was like, that's all I need. Okay. I agree with whatever you say. So
we love him.
Whatever you say. Yes. Guilty. No questions asked.
That goes back to, like, we're talking about, we've watched him be consistently a good, not just a good judge, but a good human through this whole thing with temperament and respect for everybody involved. And so that credibility that he has with us.
And he's done so many of these trials.
And that confidence,
the confidence in what he
two
said.
consecutive life and we're sick of you lying.
Dad, come back, you're going back.
Yeah. But I did think, and for those of you who missed the podcast, we did talk about how the jury members were now speaking about their experience with this trial, and that the tears were not real tears that Alec had. And I thought that I know we just kind of touched on that, but I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, they talked about how we were like
we thought he cried the whole time,
Yeah,
he looks real in the pictures.
It looks real. Yeah. It was a real good farce, I guess would be the word, or production. But they talked about that. I was 3 feet from him. There was not one, and I watched his eyes the whole time. There was not one tear that was shed.
So interesting to me. The stuff that you don't get, you watch it, but you don't get that.
Because this is my thing. Like when people talk about Buster being unaffected and just witnesses in general, when they don't have like this strong emotion like I have, that doesn't bother me. you know, because I understand.
I am that person.
I get
like, if
that.
I had to testify,
I get that about a
wouldn't be
human,
up there
right?
crying like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
Because I'm just not gonna ever do that in front of anybody.
Yeah.
It's just who I am. Like, I'll cry in my car and I'll cry in my bed, but like, I'm not gonna cry in front of a bunch of people, especially when I'm being watched and I'm feeling overwhelmed. Like, it takes me a minute to process all those things.
Do
but
you
it
show
doesn't
any
mean.
kind of body language? Do you breathe heavily? Do you?
I'm sure
do
if
any
you like
kind
hooked
of,
me up to a heart rate monitor and my heart rate's like through the roof, but I'm not
Yeah.
gonna like.
you don't show anything.
And it might sometimes show more.
She's like a poker face.
It might sometimes show more as anger too when I'm upset, and it's like it might come out as anger,
Yeah.
which makes me, if I'm up there on trial for murder, I'm looking guilty as hell. Because it's like she's angry and she's not crying.
I could see her doing it for
If that
sure.
happened and Sarah were my client, then we address it. We
Yeah.
address.
I
Like,
just-
where are we at? You
So
talk about it.
am
You-
I'd say it.
more sympathetic to people who don't, because I understand why.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Not everything that hurts like makes me cry.
That part. And when you're in shock.
But sometimes Amy cries over things that make her happy, sad. Like, if she comes in crying, you really have to ask why, because it
Yeah.
could be
You
the
don't
worst
know.
day or the best day of her life.
Ever.
She's crying. So it's like, people are just different with that. I mean, and he's also like, has no empathy if he really is this narcissist
I think we know
that
it.
he is. And so that's why he's not crying. But I don't think that explains it for everybody.
No.
Sure.
So to get up there and like,
For Buster, I mean, if I'm Buster and like my brother's killed, my mom's killed, my dad's going to prison, like, I don't know that I'm up there weeping either. I'm just like, I'm going to be in
Out of body
therapy
experience,
working
yeah.
that out. Like, that's going to take me a long time to process all of
A
that.
shell of a person.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I am like empty inside.
there's nothing left to cry, right? I mean, it's been 2 years. There's nothing
I'm
left
empty
in me.
inside. Yeah. And so I don't, Buster's difficult for me. I know some people really hate him and some people really feel bad
Yeah,
for him.
true.
And I'm
Yeah.
just, I don't.
I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt until he gives me a reason not
Yeah.
to.
Right.
Until I see something in the way of evidence that tells me that he has done something bad or participated in. Because even when I listen to the jailhouse calls, he will not participate in those things with his dad that he's asked him to do. Yeah, I didn't do that. I'm not going to do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm not going to do that. I don't want to do that. I don't want to talk about that. Like, you know?
Yeah.
And so until I see some kind of evidence that ties him to Stephen Smith, I can't go there. You know, I just got to have something else.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen that yet. So I'm going to
have
give
no
him the benefit of the doubt and be sad for him because he's lost everything.
I have no opinion on Buster.
It's tough no matter.
But I don't blame him for not crying.
Yeah.
Nah.
But I feel like you had been consistent the whole way, like talking about the way that you react. I think people were expecting a reaction from him because of the way he was acting the whole time, of like shaking his head and crying and all this stuff. So then when it
He
shifted-
never cried.
well, yes, but you know what I mean, like the fake cry.
Oh, you're talking about Alex.
Yeah, Alex.
Yeah, we're talking about Buster.
There's
Yeah.
some of us.
Oh, sorry. No, I should have clarified that.
I think with Alex, it just felt like a show.
Yeah.
And it was. I
So it
think
was like the show was over.
He was
Yeah.
playing the system.
Yeah.
And it kind of like the system had already played him. By the time he had to start his testimony with, I was lying, I was there. It's like, okay. Well,
Okay, well, yeah, might as well get off now because we're not going to believe anything
well,
you
you
say.
can't just be like, you just lied to us for 2 weeks. The
Yeah.
GM people had to bring the data, and now you're going to tell the truth.
Let's talk about the field trip that was taken for the jury to go to Moselle. I know a lot of people were really surprised by that and then also really bummed that they weren't there to be able to see what happened. Is that something that I've never heard of that happening before? Does that happen a lot with trials? They go to the
I wouldn't
scene?
say a lot, but it happens.
It's
They don't
happened.
grant them all the time.
Yeah.
Amy Z will say,
I
our
love
friend
a
Amy
good-
Zimmercheck, she always asks for a jury view every trial because she's like, you have to be there, you have to feel it, you have to know what happened here, and the judge denies it every single time.
Now, why
So
would
I
the
think-
judge deny it? What's the reasoning for that?
It's a pain in the butt to get the jury out there. It has to be like really important, I think, and the
Gotcha.
judge has to think location is a key part of the case to grant it. But
we
it's
asked for
hard
one
to
in our
say
murder
that.
trial, and they said no.
Yeah,
It was in the middle of COVID too, and it was a 1972 trailer.
Yeah.
yeah.
But I had a friend though try one at like towards the end of COVID in Columbia, in Richland County, and they did grant for the jury
Yeah.
to go, but it was a specific type of. It was a murder case where the person was shot like at
Weird
a
angle.
strange angle coming down the steps
Yeah.
of an apartment building, and so like took them to where the steps were and stuff.
So it really mattered.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think they should just allow it in any like murder case.
I think so,
The jury
too.
should get to go
Somebody's fighting for their life. Let's give.
because they want to know.
memory.
They want to know all of those things, and I'm like, if you're gonna put someone on trial for murder, the jury needs to see it.
Does the jury, as they're doing all their interviews and stuff like this, have they talked about
It wasn't. It was not helpful for the defense. It was only helpful for the prosecution.
Yeah, I don't think it helped the
Yeah.
defense.
Gotcha. Because I haven't seen them I haven't seen their interviews.
I think in this case it's also very important because we talked about sound and decibels and distances. If y'all, I know this is going to sound crazy, okay? But I've never heard anybody say, "as the crow flies" in my life. Have you ever heard of that? I've never heard that before. I'm like, what is this, like Game of Thrones? As the crow flies? Like, what does that even mean? I'm not sure still.
Hampton County.
Like Ariel, I don't know, 3 miles or 20 minutes as the crow flies. What? Why are these grown men talking about the crow flying? I don't get it. Anyways, but they talked about how like this crazy distance and all that stuff. So I think for them to go out and walk that property and to see the kennels, and you realize how close Paul and Maggie were to each other. I think all that really mattered.
And to answer, which I don't know because I didn't go there, but I always wondered, like, if he was sleeping in the house, how did he not hear these gunshots going off? The jury view would answer their question about that.
Yeah, the
How
distance.
close was it? Would you have heard it?
Yeah.
Yeah, because, and I think there was some confusion where people thought they would be able to see that, and then obviously it wasn't shown like the rest of it was. So, and was that just to protect the jury from being seen, or was there another reason for that?
And then they talked about, like, so essentially he had, 14 minutes to do what he had to do and get out of there after the murders. And so, does that make sense? The distance and the time, you just got to feel it. You got to know and see
it's different. Yeah, when you can actually be there to visualize.
I'm surprised
it,
they didn't go see the grandma's house, since we spent probably 2 days
Alameda.
of trial
Let's go
talking
on to
about
Alameda.
Grandma's house.
Do a little
and where her bedroom
drive
was.
by. So
They
stupid.
should have went there too, because I want to know their opinion.
Yeah.
Go dig through the shed.
I was just like, why does it matter where he parked when he visited his mom? He wasn't there.
Well, and we've talked about how SLED was kind of called out a lot of times in this trial, and Amy, I know you agree that SLED did not do the best job with this investigation.
No, they did a horrible job. I'm going to say it out loud. A horrible job. And I mean that with all sincerity. I mean that because, this is the issue, is that the victims deserve better, the community deserves better, the state of South Carolina deserves better. These are supposed to be the best of the best, and we're not getting the best of the best. And the defendant deserves better, everybody deserves better in that situation. But the problem becomes is, because this could have easily just as went as a not guilty. I'm just going to be honest with you. Yeah. It could have went the other way. We've seen juries come back, we think it's going to be a total, a guilty in 10 minutes, and then all of a sudden it's lingering and it's a not guilty or a hung jury. So, it could have went the other way. And now, but that it hasn't, and it went the right way, I seriously doubt there will be any kind of accountability. And if we don't acknowledge it, we can't fix it. And that's the real problem for me. Because essentially they were manufacturing evidence against someone, and that's not okay. Whether it's Alex Murdaugh or me or Joe Blow down the street, everybody deserves a fair shake. And we're not going to sit around and make up evidence.
Yeah.
It's not fair. We don't do that. That's no. Like, you should go to prison if you do stuff like that.
So you don't think
they need
that,
to fix it.
You don't think SLED will make any kind of change?
No.
Because I feel like they were called out so much.
You didn't see their victory lap and their press conference?
Rainey, people are challenging SLED in court every single day.
So it really takes a
in
lot.
my 5 years of practice, they haven't changed. So I'm not hopeful, but SLED is challenged every single day in every single county.
What do you do as an attorney for something like that? Do you hire your own people to go out and do those investigations separately?
Hire all their own
If you
experts.
have the money to do it, that's where the power play really comes into it. The state can have SLED making up evidence, doing whatever they want. The defendant,
the burden shifts to them to go figure out that they're doing it.
The burden shifts to the person who's supposed to be presumed innocent to hire other people to challenge all of this. And so that's why for me, SLED doing this is so messed up, because we all deserve better in that instance.
And the defense had the worst experts I've ever seen in my whole life.
Yeah, they did. And he has money to pay for them.
I'm like, because that it was probably the best money you can buy. And it was the worst.
It's not good.
It was not good. It was the worst testimony. It was the worst, all of it. There were just so many other experts that we've used in the past that would have been absolutely wonderful, that would explain things to the jury. They didn't have any of that. They were confusing me, and I'm a lawyer. who tries murder cases.
Yeah.
So they got me confused for the defense. Like, that's not a good thing. They weren't clear about anything.
Even with the was it the coroner that spoke?
That was the time. The little guy with
the female who like examined the bodies.
Oh, the pathologist.
Maybe.
I thought you were talking about the little old man. He was just a filler that was talking about rectal thermometers. I remember watching these chats and the rectal thermometer. Like, what the hell? And I'm like, oh, he's a filler. They weren't prepared to start, and they're just like, this guy will take up 30 minutes. We'll ask him a bunch of stuff about random things like rectal thermometers. But no, you're talking about the pathologist.
Yeah. Well, just because I kind of felt that way with her too, because they were like, well, what about this? What about this? What about this? And she's like, I don't know. I don't write any of that stuff down. I just kind of do like a brief overview of how they die, and I just kind of write it down. But I thought that was kind of interesting too, just as an eye opener of like, oh, they really don't investigate these dead bodies that come through. But I don't know.
It's not like CSI.
No. We wanted to be like Law and Order and CSI, and we're just never going to get it.
Yeah. They're like, where are the X-rays? Where are the blah blah? She's like, I just didn't do them. Yeah.
I didn't do X-rays.
Yeah.
Well,
I noticed there was a bullet. I wrote down the bullet. That's it.
Brains blown out. Cause of death. Pretty clear.
Yeah.
Brains blown out.
Did not investigate anything else.
Sade.
Yeah, there were some leaked images of the trial of the
of what? Oh gosh,
of the
I'm
bodies.
glad I didn't see it. I can't ever see it. I'm glad I didn't see it.
Of Maggie and Paul.
I don't like that.
That were shot.
Like that at all.
I don't want to see that.
And I know that there was, they were investigating who posted them because they were about to get in big trouble, but I don't even know how, because they said it wasn't somebody on the jury. It had to be somebody like in the room.
It had been somebody in the clerk's office, isn't that?
But
what
I just thought that was interesting.
Somebody within the clerk's office.
That's not good.
I don't know.
Thought that it was leaked.
That happened.
Yeah. Yep. But lots of things, lots of random side things that have popped up from this case.
I think though that everybody thought that this. So Dick Harpoli kept saying, we want to put all this behind us when he kept asking for a speedy trial in his motion. And he kept arguing, we just don't want to put this behind us, because I think that everybody desperately wants it to be done, But I think instead of like this being the closure of it, I think this is Pandora's box, because we're still not satisfied with, the answers, the Stephen Smith, the Gloria Satterfield, all these things. And I really believe that this is just Pandora's box. We're just getting started. So I'm excited about
Especially,
that.
I mean, I think maybe it would have been over and done with had it not been so widely publicized, because everybody's invested now, and you've got the Netflix show and the HBO show and all
Court
the
TV.
shows. Everybody's waiting for the movie.
We're sitting here talking about it right now.
We're talking about it too. So that definitely complicates things. To which fact, also, I'm curious about the jury. I mean, how do they keep the jury from getting all this information? Do they put them in hotels and kind of try to seclude them, or they just like go out in life and pretend like you don't know?
Normally we would have sequestering.
Yeah.
You would normally see that they would be sequestered, which none of the witnesses in the trial would be able to come in the middle of the trial.
So like Buster wouldn't be able to sit there the whole time.
Buster wouldn't be able to sit there if he was going to testify.
Gotcha.
Or maybe he would, because he's considered a victim under the...
I don't know.
But no one else would be able to. But we saw that in this case because no one asked for it to be. And I think that the reason behind that is, and I don't know if this is, I'm just educated guess here, is because it was going to be on Court TV, and every night you could just go home and watch it if you wanted to.
So there is no sequestering.
So really there is no,
yourself from
it's,
Well, that's what I'm saying. There's no way.
Facade, yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry, but there's no way that this jury did not know anything about this, or didn't receive some sort of outside knowledge of what's going on. I mean, I don't know.
Well, you would be surprised how
very
serious jurors take that.
Oh, God, I hope so.
Because we know, especially now more than ever, that everybody is listening and watching, and there's a digital footprint everywhere we go with everything.
Yeah.
The fear that they would go on their computer and then,
if I was on the jury and I sat through that all day,
the last thing I'd want to do is go home and look at it again.
How long? A month?
6 weeks.
I'm not going to look at something and ruin it.
When I go home, I'm going to cook dinner, I'm going to eat, and I'm going to go to sleep and think like, hey, I got to do it again tomorrow. I wouldn't be up there Googling things because, there's no way that this was kept from people in the beginning. I mean, even when they were doing jury qualifications, they, openly admitted that they had heard about it or seen it on the news or whatever. But as a juror, I wouldn't have been going home.
The last thing they wanted to do
exactly what that judge told me.
They're there doing laundry, trying to make sure they got clean underwear.
And we're here talking about how much we love and respect Judge Newman, and like you will hear all the time as a lawyer that when you walk into that courtroom, the jury doesn't like lawyers, they love the judge. And Judge Newman has that presence, and he gave them a very scary lecture about not going home and not looking at anything and making sure you're not researching it yourself, and everything happens in the courtroom is what you're supposed to consider.
Right.
So, but
it's all based off just trusting them, though, right? They're not like tracking their phones or tracking.
No. But I'm sure that, as Amy said, if Judge Newman told me don't look it up, I'm not looking it up.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
We know our egg lady friend obviously didn't follow the rules, but
thank you, Judge. Do I need to leave my phone here, or can I take it, or
just let me know just let me know what you want me to do, Judge.
Yeah,
I'm all in. I mean, I got jumped into this.
Do you need my Wi-Fi password?
Well, obviously, as we always say when we talk about the Murdaugh stuff, we can talk about this forever and ever. But is there any other, before I close up, are there any other moments in the trial that kind of stuck out that you guys wanted to talk about?
I was surprised they didn't blame it on Eddie. Because all of these motions, Eddie knew everything, and he was the guy. And then they got to trial, and they were like, it was drugs. And I was like, well, dang. So I'll leave it with, they need to free Eddie.
Hashtag free Eddie.
Free Eddie, because I don't know what the problem is here. We've identified the bad guy.
I'm going to start one of those Facebook picture frames. Like, it's like,
I was on the edge of my seat. Like, Eddie's going to come in here. He's going to tell us what he knows. They're going to blame Eddie. Not one mention of Eddie. It was all about 60 pills a day. And he was worried that he was going to get too sweaty.
3 mayonnaise jars full a day.
He didn't go back to the kennels because he would have got too sweaty because he was doing drugs. That's what the defense was. And I was like, dang, why'd you file all these motions about Eddie? So, hashtag free Eddie.
Everybody was doing the old bait and switch.
Yeah, I was surprised about that.
What about for you, Sharday?
That's all we got. Hashtag free Eddie.
For me, it was the testimony of Alex when he said, when Creighton Waters asked him, why do you think, if somebody else did this, why do you think that somebody killed your family? And he said, the boat case. And I think that's exactly why I killed him. Because any normal human being in that situation would have said, it's my fault. It's my responsibility that they're dead. I stole millions of dollars from people. I lied to everyone. I bought millions of dollars worth of drugs and did them. And my family paid the price for my misdeeds. And when he said the boat case, for me and in my heart, and that just sealed the deal for me that
he was like revealing.
That's exactly why I killed him. Yep.
I read an article recently. It was after the verdict came out with his I don't know if you sent that article to me. I don't know. Anyways, I read
obsessed.
It was the brother. The brother him. And it was like his first time like kind of speaking out about it. And what he said was that now when he looks back on it, he realizes that after Maggie and Paul were killed and he's all in this, okay, well, we got to find out who did it, that he then realized that his brother was never looking for who did it. And he's like, here I am calling the sheriff's department, asking about new leads, trying to get them to like send people out and all of this. And he wasn't. And he said, when he asked his brother, why do you think they were killed or who did this? He said that his brother said, I don't know, but I know that whoever did it thought about it for a long time before he did it. And he was like, now that I look back on it, this is where the problem is. And he was like, I take what the jury has said and I accept it, but will never really know everything that happens. And I wish that my brother would tell me everything that happened. And so that kind of like really spoke volumes to me that here is, someone who kind of like, in real time is realizing that
you don't want to believe your brother could do something like
that my brother had something to do with this. And
it's gotta be
now
tough.
I see why he reacted the way that he did, all those like so close to these murders happening. And now it kind of all makes sense. And I still don't have this clear conscience about, what happened, and I wish I did.
Yeah.
Justin's always
hate it.
said, he's like, babe, if something happened to you or one of our kids, like I would immediately go like Liam Neeson style and like hire people to figure it out, right? And protect everybody and to like do these things, and like none of that was going on. That's so weird.
Also, you can't compare things to you and Justin though, because you guys are like your own brand. You guys would start off like a ninja program or something.
So let's not say
But you're right. I mean, anybody would go to
and the
war.
thing is, I say that because I mean we have the money to do that. Do you know what I mean? And when you're a person of means and you can do that, and especially because he always not Justin, but Murdaugh talked about his distrust of SLED and all this other stuff. That if that were really going on in your head, that you don't trust the cops, or you don't think they're going to do a good job, which that would probably run through Justin's head. I take it back, because of what we've seen here today, that maybe SLED would be the one to investigate it. He'd be hiring like old, retired FBI agents to like figure this out and
But
protect
you don't
everybody.
sleep until you have an answer.
No.
You don't
have
go
the
about life.
housekeeper clean up the crime.
Yeah.
Unless you did it.
Yeah.
You just don't.
Hey, just make it like Maggie always
you
likes
send
it.
your investigator in there to like process stuff, but
Be
you
like,
don't
Bill
say,
B, get over here now.
you don't say, hey, go clean it up.
Go clean it up.
What also stuck out to me was, I don't know if it was
That'll
the same
always
brother.
be a red flag for me. That'll just be a
When
red
he
flag
talked
for
about
me.
cleaning up the remains of like the head that had exploded everywhere, that he knew he shouldn't have been doing it, but he couldn't help it because he just wanted to like do
Get
it
out of
right and clean it up and like not disrespect him like that. I mean, that was when I heard that, because I'm like, why didn't Alec feel like that? You know what I mean? Like, why was the uncle
And his law
doing
partners
that?
who love Paul, you see Ronnie Crosby, he's like, we just felt like this need, like, we can't just leave. It just felt like, it's not the word, like disrespectful.
That it was raining too.
Yeah, it's raining, and here's their
disrespectful.
bodies, and like there's this stuff, and even after it was over, it's like to leave, just to not do anything about it and clean. It's like, and you're not thinking in that moment like I should go try to find like someone who cleans up crime scenes. You're just like, when my grandmother died, she had an aneurysm, and I immediately started cleaning the floor. Like, I go into shock, and I started cleaning where her she had bodily fluid come out every year. Yeah. And I immediately just started cleaning. It's like when my friends' parents or grandparents or whatever die, I go to their house and I just start cleaning. It's like a reaction.
We just saw a bunch of normal human reactions explained, like people who were there and reacting. I guess what feels normal to us. Like they're explaining the way they felt and why they acted the way they did. And then you look at Alec and you're just like,
Nothing.
this doesn't make any sense, man.
Yeah.
Like, why didn't you care?
Mother effer, he did it.
Yeah.
I'm so disappointed. I didn't want him to do it.
I know.
I wanted to be innocent so bad.
How many of these podcasts have we done for her to
I
say
didn't want him to be
that?
guilty. I wanted him to not. And I don't mean I didn't want him to be guilty. I wanted him to not kill his family.
Yeah.
I think that's where
That was
Yeah.
my hope.
I think we all share that sentiment.
Yeah.
I don't think everybody did hope that he killed his family. I think it was like, he did it, and not y'all. I'm talking about like online and stuff.
Yeah.
Like people had made up their mind, and I was like really hopeful that he didn't, and then I was
Yeah.
really disappointed.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
I'm still
no matter what way you look
disappointed.
at it, for sure. All right, I'm going to cut us off because
Yes.
we will be here all day, and you guys will be stuck with us all day. So thank you so much for watching the Carolina Justice Report. We, of course, are going to stay on the Murdaugh for as long as it goes on. So I think Judge Newman said he had 90-something other cases to deal with, kind of everything going on with the family. So we'll be there for all of them. But we will keep you guys updated. Thank you so much for all of your comments, reviews, or questions. We love to get those, so keep sending those our way, and we'll answer as many as we can throughout our show and throughout the podcast as well. Thank you, ladies, so much for weighing in on this, as always. And you guys can find us anywhere that you consume your social media. We're on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and of course, you can visit us online at justiceilovely.com. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
When life gets